Hi, my name is Malia Smith, and I'm here today with Eric O. Young. And it's been a while since we've all gotten to see each other, or since you guys have gotten to see Eric on tour or anything. So we want to do an update and also just let you ask Eric anything that you might want to ask him. So thanks, Eric, for being willing to play along.
Totally. I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Malaya, for organizing this. I know that you running and helping with the social media, you're always kind of saying, "Hey, we know what can we do? What can we do?" And I'm like, "Okay, later, because I'm doing this project or that." And but this is really important to me because the fans are important to me, the listeners. It's I want to make sure that it's real,
Yeah.
so I appreciate your perspective because you're kind of speaking on their behalf. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay. So, and I know that some of these things can be Googled, some of these things can't because they're new. But
Hmm.
let's just start it off. The classic question that we got again was, where does the name Future of Forestry come from?
Awesome. Yes, always the best first question, right?
Right?
The name Future of Forestry. Actually, this is crazy. I haven't answered this question in a long time. I've just been hiding out in this hole. Um, but
This is your
so
coming out
so
of
I
hiding.
forgot. I have no idea. Um, so Future of Forestry comes from a C.S. Lewis poem called "The Future of Forestry." So it's nothing genius on my part, other than just knowing a genius um, in C.S. Lewis and seeing his poetry. And yeah, the poem is about a time in the world in which a future time in which all the trees are gone, and we are left with only a concept of what a tree is and what a forest might look like. And so there's kind of almost a fantasy world of dreaming, like, well, what is a tree, and what, and thinking, oh, it's alive, so it was a creature, and things like that. So it's really interesting. So yeah, Google "The Future of Forestry" C.S. Lewis poem and check it out. It's a beautiful poem.
I love it. So why did you choose that name?
Oh, you're not going to just let me get away with that?
No.
um well, it's like a lot of things in writing where you kind of think it's a good decision in the beginning and just go with it, and then later on you go, wow, that was like more than I imagined. And
Mm,
that kind of felt that way with the name, where it was like more like, hey, that's cool and it does have some meaning. But as it got further down the road, it was like, we live in the world of like the transition into like cell phones. By
hmm.
transition, my life is a transition. When I grew up, I
Yeah.
didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, totally.
So
You must
it
be
was like
really
the world.
old.
Yeah, I am super old. I'm like, oh my gosh, we no cell phone. So our lives are so entrenched with, digital and media and social media and all that kind of stuff. And that takes away a lot of things like um the accessibility of beauty and the accessibility
Mm,
of peace, the
hmm.
accessibility of silence and listening and things like that. And so I've had to kind of navigate those waters as a person who probably, yeah, like used to have more of that in my life and now has less of it because of the way the world operates. And so that's pretty relevant to this idea of future forestry because, trees are being stripped away. Natural life is being stripped away from us. The way
Hmm.
we relate to each other, you know what I mean? Like with COVID, like, relationships are online and all that kind of stuff in ways that they didn't used to be. Like we didn't have that. There was like deeper connection. And it was like the only people that we knew had nothing to do with Twitter, and Instagram. It had everything to do with somebody that you would see and talk to. And if you didn't see and talk to them, you wouldn't connect to them. So it was like you had all this space to
Yeah,
have deeper connections. And so, yeah, gosh, it's if C.S. Lewis were alive right now, you know what I'm saying? Like I have no
right.
idea what he would think about these times.
Be fascinating to hear. Yeah. Okay, thank you for going deeper on that one. Um, so a little bit lighter. We have a lot of people asking for a world tour, asking for you to play specific places, asking for a Red Rocks concert, asking for random America towns, asking for places all over the world. So, where are you at in thinking about playing live? Um, as it relates to the pandemic or not, just in this season of life as a musician, looking at the setting that you're in currently.
Yeah. All those things sound so exciting. You're like this and that. I'm like, oh yeah, that for sure. That, this, yeah.
Squirrel.
It all sounds super exciting. None of that is on my plate right now.
Right.
Um, but that's not an accident. I have utilized this time to grow personally and to kind
Yeah.
of dig into figuring out more about who I am, what I want to do with music, what I want to do with my life and how I operate. And and also, as an artist, like, well, at least for me, I'm always searching for a new sound as well,
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really something that just happens like instantly, but
Mm-hmm.
like, and it goes in seasons too, whereas sometimes you kind of stick with a certain thing for a while and then you experiment with this and that. This one's more of an internal one, I feel like, where I'm just kind of like, I feel like I'm looking for something right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been good for me to hide out and just work on that. How do I see the future in that though is I don't know, but I definitely am waiting, because with the transition of COVID, obviously we have vaccinations rolling out and that's kind of a norm right now, but it's still like we still live in a COVID world, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where we'll be 6 months from now or a year from now, but I'm definitely willing to wait. So I'm not um I'm not pressing to book the next tour.
Yeah.
Um, I will do that when the time is right.
Yeah.
And I don't know when the time will be. I don't know if that's ever, or hopefully it is.
Yeah.
It exists, but I definitely want to go with the flow of, where I am and what's right. So, yeah, it all sounds exciting. I do think about it though, like,
Yeah.
I don't, it's never like not on my radar. And
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is when I'm making music, I think about it. Like I can't make music without the idea
Uh-huh.
in my mind, like especially certain projects where I'm just like, I feel like I'm making this project for a live moment
Yeah.
or something
An
like that. So
experience.
yeah, so it's on my heart. It's on my heart.
Yeah. I love that. So are you in New Zealand yet? Are you there right now?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so great question. Um that's so funny because like, when you live a socially public life, you're like, we're moving to New Zealand. And then you don't move to New Zealand and you're like, oh yeah, sorry, that didn't go so well. So I am not in New Zealand. This new little
Rip.
studio is here in Oceanside, California, which is full circle back to where I started all this.
I love it.
And so the reason being is that the borders have been closed ever since it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the dream to move to New
Yeah.
Zealand. Um, and that dream is kind of evolving and rolling with the punches
Mm.
because of the borders being closed. Now there's this kind of like, it was like top priority. It was like, we've got to move to New Zealand. And that has become more like, oh, I guess we didn't move to New Zealand. We can't move to New Zealand. And if we ever can again, then now I don't know if that is the right thing or not. So
Mm-hmm.
we're just kind of here now and moving along in the old stomping grounds. And I'm back to the ocean and the surf and all those wonderful things that are here in California.
I love it. Um, so how many times a week do you go surfing right now?
Um, a good question. So let's see. I was fighting a cough the last 3 weeks, so like
Yeah, put the
almost
damper on.
none.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I've been trying to go. I don't know, maybe average of like 2 or 3 times a week,
that's
depending on
awesome.
what it looks like. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it is the best way for me to unplug and get in touch with the deeper things in
Yeah,
life. It's yeah,
literally.
it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so are you currently reading any books?
One that I'm really enjoying is called The Cloister Walk.
Hmm.
It's kind of a spiritual type book that's almost, I love memoirs,
Yeah,
but I also love just talk like deep talk, talking about life and spirituality and stuff. And um the author just kind of combines the two. Um and and it's almost the way she talks is also poetry as well. And so it's lovely. Like she just takes me on a kind of a journey through, like she explores a lot of monastic living
mm-hmm.
and her findings in that as a non-monastic person, exploring that and enjoying it. So yeah,
I
it's
love it.
definitely it's been good. I've been loving it.
Is there one practice or one idea that you've been able to implement that's been meaningful for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, good question. She's had me take a deeper look at the Psalms.
Yeah,
And the Psalms are filled with like all these things that make me feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, let's
yes,
go into the Psalms. It's like, well, I'm angry and, God's angry and like we're
yeah,
all like, dying and like pain and then there's like violence and then and God, my enemies are surrounding me and
yeah.
they're trying to kill me. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like right now, I really can't think of anybody trying to kill me. And there's just so like my whole life, I've just not related to it.
Mm,
But she was talking about how, in monastic living, like when you are hearing that on a daily basis, in some ways, this is like the most uneloquent way because she's saying it so much more eloquently. But so I'm paraphrasing. In some ways, we, um, we experience, uh, those really harsh words over and over again, and we get kind of, well, if you just hear it as like my enemies are attacking me, you get a little bored with that. You know what I mean? It's
mm-hmm,
like, you can only watch the same like violent movie over and over again before you're bored. And
mm-hmm.
so it really pushes you to begin to think of like, well, what does that actually mean? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because for David, it did mean like people were trying to kill him,
literally,
but
yeah.
literally, but like in terms of like, well, who are my enemies?
Mm,
My enemies typically aren't like Malaya or anybody that's like pissed off trying to
mm-hmm.
kill me. It's it's inner voices that are trying to
Yeah,
kill my spirit, my heart,
yeah,
um, or messages or things
mm-hmm.
in my life that are trying to take me away from like true living, from being
Yeah,
fully alive. And
yeah,
so like when you begin to look at them that way and kind of play with them in your life, you're like, oh wow, they're like I don't have to be afraid of these things.
yeah.
And so that's been a new experience for me that I really appreciate.
I love that. That really resonates. That's awesome. Um, Taking it a little lighter again, like to give us some whiplash here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you play tons of instruments, but what instrument do you love playing the most?
Yeah, so when you say I play lots of instruments, that's not really an accurate description of me. I I pick up a lot of instruments and I record them, but that by no means means like I can record them at a level of like, the session players that I've recorded and all that. So I would say that I'm like decently adequate on like just basic keyboard. Not like classical piano, but can
Yeah,
hack out what I need to
yeah.
on the keyboard. I definitely just hack away at guitar the best I can. Everything else kind of just works around those two principles of knowing those two instruments. And so that's where I play lots of instruments.
Yes.
And yeah, I think I enjoy playing like the keyboard stuff the most. I think
Hmm.
that's just I feel the most connected to that because it's all in my fingers, whereas with guitar, I'm not like your like shredder or even classical player that's just like really knows the fretboard like super well. Like when I do my guitar parts, when I'm writing, I'm like playing wrong notes all over the place.
Right.
But the reason why I get by is because once I find the part, oh, I like this part, like I'll just play it a few times before I record it. And if it's time to play it live, then I play it many times to where it's just like all in my muscle memory
Right.
so
Yeah.
I can enjoy the music instead of be thinking about the
Oh, I
parts
gotta
and
do
stuff
this.
like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say but you know, it probably depends on the moment because when I
Yeah.
haven't played guitar for a while and I pick it up to record something, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I like
I
this
love
instrument. This
this.
is cool." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. Where do you find the strength to continue with playing music and sharing your heart when times are difficult?
Hmm. Yeah. Um Times do get difficult and I would say in my, music career that um I've had ups and downs.
Mhm.
The music rarely stops. It just kind
Yeah.
of keeps going. And I think you would hear this pretty common. Like you use those
Yeah.
moments to to be a part of your writing and instead of like avoiding the hard spots, you just kind of lean into them.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's important. I think that like acknowledging that kind of like going through the fire and going through the pain is really not only is that a bible verse but it's like actually true. Like
Yeah.
we grow from suffering and I wish it
Yeah.
wasn't true. I don't ever
Yeah.
wish like suffering on somebody, but all I
Hmm.
can say is in my life the times that I have grown the most are the times that I struggle through something or my times of darkness. The times that
Hmm.
I've grown close to God are through those trials as well. And like even last few weeks being sick, I just kind of had to stop doing music and I mean I was dabbling with it, but like I couldn't sing and stuff, so I was like, all right, God, I'm gonna put all this down, and what do I do with myself? And it was really challenging at first, but after a few weeks, it was kind of like a forced sabbatical or something like that, like a
Yeah.
forced
Like a
break.
Selah, Sabbath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was good. It was like
Mm.
this year, that was one of the best things for me that I could experience is like kind of, oh, I can't just keep going. I can't just like,
Yes.
make music. I need to like go, oh, I gotta stop here and like figure out some things in my life and
Yeah.
struggle through some things.
Yeah.
And then now that I feel like I'm kind of through that, I'm like super amped right now. Like, as soon as we hang up from this, I'm like back to the music and like the inspiration's there.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
love it.
to answer your question, it's like to be able to embrace those moments and
Hmm.
recognize like, no, I'm not wasting time here. Like
Yeah.
whatever is going on that's totally sucks will feed into my music, but more
Hmm.
importantly, it will feed into me. It will make me, a
Yeah.
better person.
Yeah.
So hopefully the next time I'm like really struggling or whatever, I can hear my own advice because I know it's like it's one thing to hear it now, but like when you're struggling to be able to like have that perspective is very
Yeah.
difficult. And I think, hopefully the older I get, the more I'm able to recognize that.
Yeah. I love that. So, a lot of people have asked for stories behind songs. So, rather than giving you a particular one, I'll let you
Mm,
choose in light of the Lord helping you work through different seasons of life, whether it's difficult or, easier, in light of God moving in different seasons and writing songs out of those. What's the story behind a
mm.
song that you would like to share?
Yeah, I'll mention the song Tears because
Mm,
when you write albums, you don't really know what's gonna reach people, and usually when you think like a certain song's gonna reach people, it's not that song. And then the least like, well, for example, "Slow Your Breath Down" has been probably the most like I get the most feedback from that in
yeah,
my career, you know.
yeah, hands down.
But like that song was on the like throw in the trash list.
It was on
Um
the B list?
yeah, not even B list, like
Like
C
Z?
or D list, like the Z list. It was like, yeah,
No,
nothing's gonna happen. And I don't even know.
no.
It might have been my wife or it was probably my wife. Somebody was like, I don't know if you want to throw that out, you know? And so
Mm,
I was like, really? Okay. And then finished the song and I was like, okay, you know, it's not as bad as I thought. And then, you know, after that, it was just kind of like, oh, there's something here that
yeah,
I'm really glad I didn't throw away. So
yeah,
anyway, each album, there's, you know, commonly a song, one song or two songs or whatever that's just like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be, you know, the song that people are met by. And Tears
yeah.
is on this latest album, Remember, um, is, is, uh, is the song that I hear a lot of people just being like,
Mm,
not just like, hey, that's a cool song, you know what I mean? Because that's great. Like, hey, cool song, that's dope, you know. But like when somebody's like, dude, like God
yeah,
met me, like I was
yeah,
driving or I was doing
yeah,
this and like I was undone by
yeah,
like, you know, the presence of God in this or whatever
yeah,
happened to me was healed or like that's when you're just like, dude,
yeah,
that's beyond me and that's why I
yeah,
do music, you know.
yeah.
And so yeah, so just hearing some feedback from that song, it has been meant a whole lot. And
Mm,
you know, that song, it wasn't really written out of like an individual experience I had. It
mhm,
was more written like maybe thinking and talking with my wife about theology
mm,
and trying to kind of understand suffering.
yeah,
My theology has changed and hopefully grown over the, you know, the last few decades of my life, uh, where I had probably a more of a narrow, simple version of like why God allows suffering,
mm,
you know, and I have a lot of like kind of cliches on that.
mhm,
But when you're married to someone that first of all is a theologian and secondly is just like honest,
yeah,
you know, then you're like, oh, I think my theology is a little bit thin.
yeah,
and and so I had to come to a place of recognizing that like God is not the person or the God, you know, the being, the heavenly being that you can be like, um, save me, I from death, like, or
right.
save me from like suffering, or save me. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm,
how many
yeah,
people in the Holocaust cried out to
right.
God, or how many people with you know, cancer
Yeah,
or AIDS or
mhm,
you know, all these things that were just like pleading, you know,
mhm,
and so it's a universal thing. It's like suffering is there,
yeah,
and the bottom line is there's no guarantees
mm-mm,
from God that He's going to like change. Sometimes He does, and I believe in miracles and I believe in healing
absolutely.
and all of
Yeah,
that, but like, but it's not a guarantee. Like,
right.
and I'm not saying that because of some like, you know, because the Bible says that or because so and so theologians say. I'm saying that because like all you have to do is open your eyes and look around.
Yeah,
Like if God worked that way, then like he would be magic. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But He has different ways, and I don't understand them.
yeah,
All I know is this: like in suffering, what matters to us as human beings is His presence.
yeah,
You know, Um,
absolutely.
and I wish I could just pray away all the suffering or whatever, but knowing
Mhm,
that I can't, then it comes down to this, like, will I suffer alone or will I suffer
Yeah.
with love inside of me? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Beside
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
around me, behind me, and before me, you
Yeah.
know? And so there are some lines in there that are in the song Tears that are painful, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I'm terrible at quoting my own lines because I can't even remember them, but I know I say something about
Mhm.
things like I was with you when you didn't have a choice, you
Yeah.
know? Like
Yeah.
just those around us who uh were were raped, or
Yeah.
those around us who as children just suffered
Mhm.
incredible amounts of horrificness, you know?
Yeah.
Um like never had the choice. And sometimes we choose our, you know, pain
Yeah.
and whatever, like
Absolutely.
that's which hurts just as bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like when we had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
and you know, like a 3-year-old kid or something like that, it's just like what do you do with that?
Right.
So I just kind of was like dealing with that, you know, and I
Yeah.
had to go, look, I don't have a lot of answers, but
Mhm.
I know that this is important, you know,
Yeah.
that the presence of God is important, and
Yeah.
that it's important to him and his way of loving us
Yeah.
in a crazy world that is
Mhm.
very messed up, that he's aware that it's
Yeah.
messed up. You know what I mean? He's not like,
Yeah.
oh, geez, like, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
and he's here. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Oh, deep breath. Okay. Um, would you ever like to compose the score for a film?
Great question. So I am dabbling with film stuff right now. I am
Yeah.
working on a feature film that I can't mention, but
You
it's
heard it
been
here
super
first.
fun. Yeah, so it's been super fun, and so it's kind of one of those things I'm enjoying and exploring. My music, I think, as I'm creating, when I create music, it's very visual. The
Mm,
process is very visual to me, and so it does make sense. You know what I mean? To
yeah.
like go, oh, well, I could actually do that.
Yeah.
So it's not something that like in any way I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like switch my career, you know, for this, and now I'm like my goal is to like do the next Marvel movie or anything like that. But I am definitely like open to kind of pursuing my music and then um artistic ventures
Yeah.
in scoring that
I love it.
are close to my heart. And so the film that I'm working on right now is like it's like, oh wow, I really care about this subject.
Yeah.
And it's like pretty much exactly along the lines of the what I'm already doing anyway.
Mhm.
So you know, with that, it's just kind of like, oh cool, this is something I want to do. So
I love it. If you could score any genre or any type of film, I know you said, I'm not, doing the next
mm,
Marvel movie, but like,
yeah,
okay, pipe dream, like
yeah,
anything goes. What kind of
yeah.
movie would you love to score?
Yeah, not that I wouldn't love doing a Marvel movie. It's just that I don't. That's not under my belt in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah,
like what I am good at.
yeah.
At least yet, maybe I'll be like you know the next like Marvel movie guy someday. But like for right now, what I lean to is kind of like the deeper, intricate kind of stuff. So I guess that would put me more into the drama,
Yeah,
more on the serious. And you
yeah,
know, I don't
yeah.
think I would be
You're not
very
gonna
good
do
at
like a
all at like
rom-com.
no, I would be terrible at that. I would be terrible at like horror because
Oh
I
gosh,
can't. I would just be scared the whole
I can't
time while
do
I'm
it.
scoring.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So no, like
Yeah,
I really I just want to always work on things that are beautiful,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
that's kind of like a huge part of
yeah,
the film, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what category that falls in. Beautiful? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully it falls into all categories, but
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so when you were little, think back many years ago, because you've already told us you're old. What artists, musicians, or bands did you love?
Mm. Um, let's see. When I was young, when I discovered U2, that was kind of the beginning of rock music for me.
Yeah.
Um, because back then was like, let's see, Unforgettable Fire, War, um, and then like Joshua Tree. I mean, all
Yeah.
this stuff that was coming out. It was like the heyday of like, U2.
That's
So
great.
that changed my life, of what music could do to you.
Hmm.
When you just put the headphones on, I was like, what is going on? And this can't be right because this is wrong the way I feel right now when I listen to this. But yeah, so that stuck with me. And then, from there, I, I don't know if there was a lot of specific other bands. I would just listen to a lot of different things. Um, yeah, it just kind of grew from there, I would say.
That's fun. Okay, one more kind of like more lighthearted question. What's the strangest instrument you've ever played? Or I'll say incorporated into a song, like even if someone
Hmm.
else played it.
Yeah, so I mean, the strangest instrument I personally have played would be things that aren't even supposed to be instruments. Um,
Yeah.
so, like I just look around sometimes and like what would make a noise, and then I record it and
Like what?
I love like you could just like take, like coffee cup and I don't know and
Yeah.
just like make sounds.
Yeah.
But the cool part of it like is when you sample it, especially if you sample it at a really high frame rate, and then you can do things like drop it down like 5 octaves. So if I did this with my cup, like that
Yeah.
sound, but
Yeah.
then like slowed it down and like
Yeah. Yeah.
5 octaves down, then it could go yeah, and it's like super cinematic, and you're like, what is that instrument? It's like my coffee cup. So
Right. How do you
yeah,
put
so
that in
anyway,
the liner notes?
there's a million things around sometimes it's funny because I'll hear them like they're everyday things like a
Yeah.
plate or whatever,
Yes.
like a real plate, not a plate reverb, but like a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
plate.
Yeah.
And then like later on somebody will clink that plate and all of a sudden I'll just hear the song because that's the same frequency, so that's always
Yes.
fun. But
That's awesome.
the funnest thing though is recording somebody else that does an instrument that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
So I would say of my discography, one of the funnest things to do was record the sarangi on
Yes.
the album Awakened to the Sound.
Yeah.
Um and the way that happened was not composing a bunch of songs and then recording the sarangi. The way that happened was having the sarangi player come and um play for me.
Yeah.
Just noodle around, do what he does. And I was able to just like absorb the language and learn from him instead of tell him what to do.
Yeah.
And that to me is when I got to like that's how I got to grow through the experience instead of just be like, okay, here's what you're supposed to play.
Yeah.
And so the songs were really shaped by the instrument, really.
I
Obviously it
love
was
it.
by the player too, but like the instrument and the way that the sonic like texture of it and the melodic direction of it and stuff like that, it just shaped the songs, it shaped the whole album. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
super fun.
I love it. Okay, so we got so many questions submitted. There's no way we're going to get to all of them. I just
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to know that they all matter. They're all amazing and honestly could be like great conversations over a meal, which, would obviously be the preferred method of, getting to know people. But um so all that to say, they all matter. We saw them. Thank you.
And
But
some
one
of the questions you asked me, were these some of them
Oh,
already?
yeah. I can give you a super quickie one if you want to right now. You ready?
Sure, sure.
If you could be any ocean creature, which one would you be and why?
Oh man, that's tough because um, I wouldn't want to be like speared or whatever by a human. So, um, like an
Well,
octopus.
okay.
Have you seen the Netflix documentary called My Octopus Teacher?
I've heard about it.
Oh my gosh, Malaya, you have to watch it. It's like seriously, like they're like I'm it's definitely in my top like 2 or 3 films this year. I probably actually it's probably been a year or so since I saw it. But my kids love it. Like I've watched it like 3 times. It's
That's
beautiful.
awesome. So
It's
why
so beautiful.
octopus?
Um, it's a super kind of like rough style documentary where this
Yeah.
guy just like as a free diver, meaning like no gear or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, just like took this season, took his camera and was like, I'll make a documentary, and then kind of like met this octopus. It's like, how do you meet an octopus? Um, well, like he
It's like a joke.
individually like followed the same octopus through its lifetime and got to know it. But the crazy thing is, like, it got to know him as
No
well,
way. They are
and it
so
was
intelligent.
just yeah, it was just like a kitty cat, like how
Yeah.
cats like. Well, not all cats, but some of them are just like, I don't know if I like you, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or like they're
Mhm.
afraid of you.
Yeah.
And then it just needs some time or whatever. I won't give any more away, but like the journey is like beautiful, and like you spend a good portion of it in tears. Like
Oh,
if you're a guy
yeah.
like me that like can just like get triggered like pretty easily by that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's beautiful. So check it out.
Okay, so what about the octopus resonates for you then?
Um, oh, I don't know. Maybe just the movie was just so like this is awesome. I I've always liked dolphins though,
Yeah,
probably I think because they're so playful.
yeah,
And I've learned that about myself like fun and play is like always top priority. Like
yeah,
sometimes to
yeah.
um you know probably not like the better place of judgment sometimes,
Like,
where like it's like, well,
great kids.
responsibility or fun, like fun, so yeah, that happens to me. But I always see dolphins, like dolphins do those, like, have you ever seen them do those bubble rings, you know what I mean, where
Yeah,
they whip their nose like that as they breathe out, and it literally makes this like beautiful ring. It's a bubble, and
yeah.
then they can take it, and as it's spinning and floating, they flip it and do weird things with it, and then make it split
Wow.
into 2 and 3. And you're like, and of course, you're like, well, how is that practical? You know what I
It's
mean? Like,
not.
it's definitely not practical. And when you see creatures playing, there's something that it's
Yeah,
like, wait, what? Like,
yeah,
what is going on? Like, who's on the other side of the eyeballs of that dolphin
yeah,
that's like playing right now? You know what I mean? So I
yeah,
can't answer that question, but like, it's fascinating to me.
yeah. I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank everyone. Thank you so much for all these wonderful questions. And thank you, Eric, for taking time to just share your heart and be willing to just open up and come out of hiding a bit and
Yeah.
share some
Yeah.
thoughts.
I have to be honest, like, I get very one track minded. So if I'm working on the music and you're like, hey, let's do an interview, I'm like, no, I'm just doing the music. But once I get here and I'm
Yeah,
thinking about like my fans and how like I am so grateful. Like I'm
yeah,
so grateful that I like you know that people like listen to my music and they like it.
mhm,
And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for the messages of like, hey, this meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? And like, honestly, it fuels everything I do. Like, I sit there and I make music, and like, it is my hope and my dream and my goal that like people's hearts are met like somehow in the
Mm-hmm.
music. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
why I do what I do every day. So like when I sit with you and like do this interview, I'm like, oh yeah, like I freaking love it. I really enjoy it. Like I feel
Yeah.
like the fans are here right now.
Good. Good.
So like please don't hesitate. Like you
So we
know,
can do this again.
hit me up again. Yeah, just be like, it's okay. It's time to like pull your head out. Let's
Yeah.
do this. So
Awesome. Great. So
yeah.
now it's been stated in public, so we can hold you to it.
Yes. Okay. Let's
I
do it.
love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric, and thank everyone for watching along. And we'll do it again, apparently. So that's exciting
Sounds
too.
good.
Yeah. And keep
Bye,
listening and
guys.
sharing the music. Bye.
Thanks, Milan. Take care. It was. How long was that?